In this video, I'm going to show you how this awesome greenhouse was built, and this was shared by a member of our community. CL shared this, and they shared a bunch of photos, which is really helpful. We're going to be able to break down this build really easily, and you'll be able to see how you can recreate it if you want to make something similar. This is made entirely out of off-the-shelf electrical conduit, which you can get different hardware and home improvement stores in the electrical aisle, and this one is made specifically with half-inch EMT conduit, and you can cut half-inch EMT pretty much to any size that you need. You can buy it in a 10-foot stick and then cut it down to size, which is what they did for this project. And you just use a handheld tubing cutter to do that. And then the connectors that we are going to see throughout the frame are from makerpipe.com. You can use those to build all kinds of awesome stuff like this greenhouse, which is really cool. And we're just going to highlight some different things in this. And like I said, there's a ton of photos, and we're kind of going to go through a lot of these quickly, but then we'll stop at some of the ones that actually show the finished frame so we can break down the design. But essentially here we can see pretty much just added verticals, and then this is meant to be a lean-to greenhouse because this has these horizontal bars that go all the way to the side of their house and then secured there, and we'll kind of highlight how those are secured here in a minute. But essentially just has these three verticals on this outside frame opposite of the house, and then they've got some verticals on the side as well too that we're going to highlight here in just a second once we see kind of the whole frame put together. But they shared a bunch of photos, which is awesome. Love seeing the kind of progress of a project put together. A lot of times we don't really see that. We just see one or two of the finished build. This is really fantastic to have all of these, so thanks again, CL, for sharing it. But here is kind of the finished frame, so we can go ahead and break down how this was put together. And so essentially, like I said, there's three verticals on this outside wall here opposite from the house, and it just has this vertical going down, this one here, and then on the two other walls, there's also a vertical going down, just one on each side. There we have, for the main frame anyway. And then over here on the opposite side is where this door is, and we'll highlight that here in a minute, but I guess we'll go ahead and talk about the verticals, which are just those two going down from the frame. So once you have your verticals in place, you can kind of connect everything together. And we saw through the photos that pretty much did these three outside verticals first, and then added in the rest of the frame, added in this side kind of reinforcement section halfway up. So we'll just kind of break this down the same way that they built it, which is essentially the three outside verticals first, and then they use the MakerPipe 90-degree connector, as we can see here, kind of oriented on the side. And that connector allows you to have that vertical going up, and because you don't have to do any welding, you just use a 5mm hex wrench, the pieces of conduit actually terminate in the connector and stop in there and clamp down inside of that connector there. So essentially they've got the verticals going up there, stopping in the frame, and then they have these long horizontal pieces of conduit terminating inside that side of the connector, going all the way to the house. And then they're using the MakerPipe flange to secure this to the side of their house there. Just has that running there, clamped around it, and then bolted to the house. We can see there's one there. And they actually did something unique with this, which is instead of using both pieces of the clamp or of the flange, they actually just have one side of it, and then they're using the self-tapping screw to secure that and kind of hold that to the conduit. So that's really unique. You could use the whole flange if you want, or save some money and just use one half as they're doing. But essentially just has those three horizontal pieces secured to the house with with the flange there. And so then on the two outside pieces, it's actually extending all the way to the 90, as we can see here, going from one side to the other, and then securing with the flange. But here in the middle, they actually did something different to be able to reinforce this roof, and that was using the 180-degree connector, which actually allows this piece of conduit to run continuously through it all the way to the side and all the way to the 90, as we talked about with the other two. But the difference is now they're able to add two more pieces of conduit that terminate in the connector and then extend out to the side of the frame, as we can see there. And then of course the same thing on the other side. So then here we've got another vertical, and this one is actually, these horizontal bars are actually, I think, angled slightly, and so they're using the adjustable angle hinge connector here to add this vertical pole, and actually it's probably not angled, but it's probably just an uneven surface, so to keep that vertical straight, they're using the adjustable angle hinge. So then directly next to it is a T connector, and that's where that pole is going to the middle of the frame for that roof support. So pretty much that's it for the side walls. Same thing on this other side, adjustable angle hinge. Directly next to it is a T connector, and we can see that there. So that's pretty much the main part of the frame. We'll look at the door here in a second. But then they added this kind of reinforcement halfway up the frame. And so essentially they've got, actually, I missed this vertical. So this is another vertical that they've secured to the frame using an adjustable angle hinge as we can see there, just like that. So it probably is mirrored exactly the same on the other side. It's just the gate on the other side goes in the middle of those two. So probably mirrored the exact same way, but essentially just another vertical there, as we can see, just going down from the top of that frame with another adjustable angle hinge. And then down here, they're using a T connector just to add this horizontal bar. This terminates inside another 180 degree connector that we talked about, just to add that reinforcement that goes down to the side. Here we've got a 90 degree connector where that terminates, goes to the middle, where you've got another 180. Let me switch to a different color here. Can't really see it anymore. That goes down to the 90, then the same exact thing just mirrored on the other side. So just T's, 90s, and 180 degree connectors is what they use to create this frame, as we can see here. It terminates there. So we've got 180 degrees, 90 degree, 180, 90, 180, and then T, 180 there, T there, over here. Okay, so that's pretty much that reinforcement bar going all the way around, and that's pretty much the main part of the frame. So we can kind of highlight this again here, where you've got the 90s in the corners, just like that. You've got the flanges securing this to the wall, and then you've got a variety of adjustable angle hinges, T connectors, and 180s, just to add these other verticals on the sides, and then to add these reinforcement pieces going all the way around there. And so that's pretty much the main part of that frame. So we'll save that, and then we'll go to the gate here on the other side. I think we can see that if we keep scrolling through here, we can see where they've added the greenhouse plastic, but we'll come back to that in a minute. First, we're just going to find this picture of the gate. So here we can see where they've got that horizontal bar going all the way against the house, and then essentially they just used the adjustable angle hinge to grab onto here, and then these vertical pieces going down to the ground, as I mentioned, just like that. And then they've used maker pipe T connectors to kind of frame out the door, as you can see here. So it's pretty much just this large rectangular door that they're able to go inside of. And then if we look at this other photo, we can see that they're using the aluminum snap-on hinges that we've talked about on the channel before, which work really well. They just go around the empty conduit, and then you use the self-drilling screw to secure that in place. And that makes it really easy to create a gate that you can open and close. And so they've pretty much just, framed out the door as we looked at with the conduit there to make this rectangular shape. And then they just used T connectors to create a two-dimensional rectangle that they can fit inside of this rectangle here. And then with those snap-on hinges, they can open and close that really easily. And then, last but not least, they've secured everything to the frame. So they've got all their greenhouse plastic on top of this here. As we can see, they've got plants growing inside, and it looks fantastic. And if you need to secure your greenhouse plastic, well, of course you do, but if you need ideas for doing that, you can use the conduit cover clips that we have on the website. You can also just search greenhouse plastic clips and find some that are made for the size of EMT conduit that you're working with, and you can secure the plastic in place doing that. And it looks like they might have used a variety of 3/4 and 1/2 inch EMT conduit, which is a pretty good thing you can do to save money in your builds. I think the roof pieces are made with 3/4 inch, and I think maybe the verticals are 1/2 inch. So you can kind of mix and match materials and sizes so that you can save some money, but still get the reinforcement that you need in certain parts of the build. So that's a good idea. And this is just a really awesome frame and a really awesome greenhouse, and knew we just had to do a video because it's such a great one and a great design that hopefully you can find inspiration from. I'll be sure to link this down below if you want to check out all these photos. I definitely recommend it, especially if we're going to recreate this. But hopefully you found some inspiration from this video and have some ideas for how you can rebuild this if you want to for your garden. If you have any questions, leave those down below and we'll be happy to help. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.